Les damos la más cordial bienvenida a Teaching Training Sessions 2020, organizado por la sección de idiomas de la Facultad de Humanidades USAC, Embajada de los Estados Unidos en Guatemala y Asociación de Jóvenes Ex Becarios del Departamento de Estado AGEDE. Mi nombre es Graciela Mendizábal y estaré apoyando en la moderación de esta conferencia. Algunas de las instrucciones generales para el transcurso de la conferencia son las siguientes. Número 1, al finalizar de la conferencia se darán 10 minutos para la lectura de sus preguntas y comentarios que pueden hacernos llegar en el chat en vivo a través de YouTube. Número 2, los invitamos a suscribirse a nuestros canales de YouTube, TTS Conference y sección de idiomas. Y por último, los invitamos a llenar el siguiente form que voy a estar compartiendo al principio de la conferencia por el canal de YouTube para que ustedes puedan participar en nuestro giveaway del TTS. Agradecemos su valiosa participación en la conferencia titulada Effective Questions for Effective Classroom. Está a cargo de Sara Caal, a quien le damos la más cordial bienvenida en nombre de la comisión organizadora de TTS 2020. A continuación presentaré a Sara Caal dando lectura a su hoja de vida. Her name is Sara Caal. She is 25 years old. She is born in Cobán, Alta Verapaz, and living in Huehuetenango for about 4 years. She's the sixth from a family of 10 members. She is graduated as an accountant in 2013, teacher in 2 different schools in Carcha, Alta Verapaz, course TAC taken in 2016, CIT Best Practices course taken in 2016 at the campus of Del Valle University, Access Head Teacher in Huehuetenango 2017, SEAL Teacher in Huehuetenango in 2018, Access Teacher and Coordinator for Huehuetenango, second year, TTS Head Trainer in Huehuetenango, Calusac Teacher in Huehuetenango for 2 years, and studying at the university the 5th semester in PEM y Técnico en Administración Educativa. Dejo el uso de la palabra a nuestra querida conferencista Sara Caal. El micrófono es todo tuyo.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am very happy to be with you today. So today, as you can see, we are going to be working in this workshop, which is effective questions for classroom activities. And as Graciela said, I am Sara, and I'm going to be with you this time, sharing some of the things from some knowledge that I have with this. And I'm going to start this workshop by asking you a question. Oh, before the question, sorry. I'm going to talk to you about some objectives for this workshop. The first one is identify why teacher asks questions. We always ask questions as teachers in our classroom, right? We do not wait for students to come up with the answers and stuff like that. We always ask them so we can have our answers, right? The other objective for this workshop is contextualize the questions. And the third objective would be make questions communicative because we want our students to share, to talk in the classroom, right? Now we are going to talk about some things, but first I would like you to ask this question. Why do you ask your students questions? Why do you ask them questions? Graciela, can you please share with me some of the answers people can write on the live chat, please?
Sure, I will do that.
Thank you. So we can see what they think about this question. I'm going to give you some seconds so we can see and we can share some of your questions, some of your answers from this question. Did you get any answer, Graciela?
Not yet.
So let's wait some other minutes. If we don't have, then I'll continue. Graciela, why do you ask to your students questions? Can you help me with this?
Yeah, sure. I ask my students questions to be sure that they understand what I'm asking and if they have the instructions clear.
Okay. Do we have any other answer, Graciela, from our participants?
Yes. To notice if they understand my class or my lesson.
Yeah, sure.
That's one. We have another. We ask questions to know if they are understanding, for participation, to get to know what they've learned, and for them to produce the language, to make sure they are learning, to get information about what they want to know, to have students' attention. Those are some of the answers.
Thank you, Graciela. Yes, you are correct. We always ask questions to our students to comprehend, to understand. And right now, I'm going to show you some of the answers you have and some others, so you can compare. So one of these ones are to obtain information from our students when we want to know if they know about the topic or the things we're talking to them. The second one is to maintain control of a conversation. Maybe it can be between you as a teacher with your students, or maybe between the students, right? To clarify a point, when the students don't understand maybe instructions or maybe any part of the lesson or maybe something they are reading. So we ask questions to clarify a point. To test knowledge, to encourage thought. We want our students to think, right? We want our students to transmit what they are thinking about. So these are some of the answers from this question. Why, as teachers, ask them questions? Now, we're going to suppose, as you can observe in your screen. Let's suppose this is a teacher's class. So we're going to set the situation. Teacher asks students, Charles. Teacher asks students, but in this case, this teacher asks directly to one student, Charles, what are the differences between weather and climate? Now, I want you to think as if you were this teacher that you asked this question. How is this question framed? How is this question structured? You can write on the chat so we can see how do you think is this question framed? How is it structured? Do you think the student is going to be able to talk if you like directly ask to one student? Or is he going to be shy? So tell me, what do you think about this question? If you are the teacher. Graciela, I will ask you to tell me if you get any answer from our participants, please.
Sure, I will tell you when we have answers.
Thank you.
Let's see, I have, no, not yet. I think they're waiting for the answer because of the live connection from Zoom to YouTube. It's about 40 seconds late, so that's why maybe they haven't seen your question.
Okay, so let's give some seconds. By now, Graciela, can you help me with this? What do you think? What do you think about this question, the structure, or How do you think this teacher is asking the question to the student?
The question is, Charles, what are the differences between weather and climate, right?
Yep.
So I think it's not well formulated because who's Charles? And the differences, well, I need to know like the specific information before I can answer to
Yeah.
it. So
In this case, it's like you're the teacher and you're like, you want your students to answer this question, but instead of asking to the complete class, he's asking or she's asking to one specific student. So what do you think about this?
oh,
Is
then
this student going to answer this question, or what do you think about how this teacher is asking the question?
well, I think they are putting on the spotlight to the student, and maybe the student is shy, so that person is not going to be able to answer it.
Yeah, you're correct. That's something that can happen. Do we have any answer, Graciela?
Yes, we have one. It says the question is very general. And we have another one that says maybe change what are the difference for? Do you know the differences?
Okay, yeah, I agree. So how do we fix it? How do we fix this question? And I think one of the things is, as Graciela was mentioning too, is to set the context, right? To set the complete thing, because this is too direct and too general. So the other question, which is how do we fix it? In this workshop, I'm gonna show you how you can fix this kind of questions or this type of questions you as a teacher, or sometimes we as a teacher say into our classes, and we just ask to one student, right? And I'm gonna show you 4 steps so you can have different kind of questions, so your students can be very active in your class and they are not shy and they don't answer your questions if you ask them. So let's see. So the first step is plan and ask. So we as a teachers, we need to think like we think before, we plan before for our student, right? And one of these is plan, right? Now, in plan and ask, we have the level of thinking from our students. So sometimes we ask questions to our students that is not the level of them, like the level of thinking from them. Maybe we ask too hard questions to them and they maybe do not have the language, or maybe they think something and they cannot say it because they don't have the correct language to say it. So we need to think about that, right? And we need to think about also the age of our students to develop this kind of, or to have an answer for the questions we create for them. And another thing is that we, for this level of thinking, we can use Bloom's taxonomy. In Bloom's taxonomy, we can see that we have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. All of this can help us to create our questions, because sometimes are we asking a question of remembering? Are we asking a question of understanding, or do we want our students to apply something or analyze or evaluate? So the Bloom's taxonomy can help us to create our questions based on not only in our needs, but also in our students' needs. The other one is inviting language. What are some, what might you say about this? What do you think, right? So this is the first step that we can use to have our questions well created. Then we have wait time. Sometimes, or let's say most of the time, we set a question and we want our students to answer right away. Like we want like what is this? And you want your students to say like directly, this is a pen. What is the name of your dog, or stuff like that? And we want our students to answer right away. And sometimes they need time. So for wait time, we need them to think first, because they cannot just say the answer, right? So wait time, thinking time for students. You decide how much time. I have here 3 to 5 seconds or more in parentheses. Like, you as a teacher know your students, so you are able to manage this. Normally, with my students, I give between 5-10 seconds sometimes, because I mean, I know my students, but in this case, you decide as a teacher, you know your students. So you can give 3-5 seconds or more, depends on what are you asking to them, or how are your students, how fast are they thinking, right? And also students feel safer. Why? Why safer? Because in the first question I ask, and it says, Charles, what do you think, or what are the difference between weather and climate, or something like that, right? But you are directly, as Graciela said, taking this student into the spotlight. And it's like, this student, right? And sometimes you feel like, why me? You feel like everybody's looking at you and stuff like that. So when you give time to a student, they feel safe because they know they can think, right? And by giving time for them, then they can say the answer, right? But if you take it directly to the spotlight and they're like, why, what? So that's one thing that you can take into consideration when you ask questions, giving time to your students. Then we have share privately. In this case, what it means share privately is that whenever you ask a question to your student, don't ask directly. Ask the question, but give them time first to think, as I said before. And then share privately means maybe with the person next to them, maybe with the person in front of them. So it's only private, like with these people only. So when they share privately, they can understand. Students test understanding. Like, I am giving the answer for this question, but maybe I didn't get it like my partner. So maybe my partner can explain to me what is the correct answer for this question, and we can correct misunderstanding. And maybe I understand something different, and that's why I'm giving this answer. But my partner has the correct answer, and he can lead me to go to the right answer. And the other one, it's like, if you can explain it, you understand it. Like, if I am saying to the other person, what is the correct thing? Or I am answering this question is because I understand it. We cannot just talk just because, right? So when we leave our students to share privately with a partner, with a person in front of them, or maybe with the person next to them, they can understand, they can correct mistakes, and they can understand better the question. And the fourth step is share publicly. What I'm saying about share publicly is that after they share with a peer, with a partner, they can, it holds students accountable, because now that they have the question, they already think about it, you give them the time, now they are accountable of the question. They have the answer from others, and now they know what they're talking about. So in this case, they can share with the complete class. You as a teacher can ask the student to share with others, and you as a teacher also can have this confidence to tell the student that any student in your classroom, like now you can name one person, like Juanito, Pedrito, any of your students, because they already did all of the process before. So now they can have this sharing thing in the complete class, and you don't have this student not answering your question, right? Now, before I continue, in the chat, what I want you to do is to think about the question. The first question I ask you. I'm sorry. This question. When the teacher asks, Charles, what are the difference between weather and climate? Now that you have the 4 steps to guide your students and to have these effective questions into your students, try to change this. Try to set the context and try to use the 4 steps. You can write on the chat, what are your comments on this? How would you change this question so it can be meaningful for your students? You can have them, you can give them the wait time, you can give them the sharing like privately and the sharing publicly. So I'm gonna give you some minutes so you can write on the chat what are the things you will change from this? How are you going to change it? So please, Graciela, I will ask you again to help me with this. If you have any answer, so you can tell me what are they writing.
Sure, Sara, I just typed it in the chat so they can start sharing their comments about the question that you are asking. I will let you know.
Thank you.
I have one. Carla Fernandez says, do you think there is a difference between weather and climate? Let's discuss. Millie Paz says, water question open. Oh no, but that's not from the activity. I'm gonna write it down for you to answer it at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we only have right now that answer.
That answer. And I think it's fine because you said, let's discuss. And I think you're giving a time to your students to think and to internalize with the question you are asking them.
I have another one.
Yep.
Pedro Lopez says, I will say, what do you think are the differences between weather and climate? Jamie Renault says, can you tell me if there is a difference between weather and climate? Avi Oliva says, do you know what is the difference between weather and climate? Maria Romelia Ramirez, do you know some differences between weather and climate? Which ones? Karin Lara, about do you think? Well, I think it's do you think? What do you think about weather and climate words? Maria de Los Angeles, is it possible that there are differences between weather and climate? Rosemary Gaitan, what details do you know about weather and climate? Do you think there's a difference between them? Grisel Barrientos, can someone tell me the differences between weather and climate? Luis Alberto, or do you think what are the differences between weather and climate? Carla Fernandez, can you please mention some differences between weather and climate based on what we discussed? Do you have any idea about differences between weather and climate? Somebody can tell me which is the difference between weather and climate?
I really like that one. because it says someone. It is, you're not taking one student into the spotlight. That's very nice.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, let's read some others.
All right. Do you have any idea about the differences between weather and climate? Karin Lara says weather versus climate. How do we difference between weather and climate? Johanna says first define what weather is and what climate is. Mirza, is there a difference between weather and climate? Raquel de Sosa, do you think weather and climate refer the same meaning? Wendy Salazar, Pedrito, could you give me some example using the words climate and weather? Irma Vicente, can you tell me an example using weather and climate? And those are pretty much it right now.
Thank you, Graciela. So all of your answers are correct. And something I didn't say about this is that there is no context. Like as Graciela was telling me, like, I don't know, you need to tell me what is happening here. Like, because if you are in your classroom and you are like this teacher and you just are in your class and you're just ask Juanito, or in this case, Charles, right? Charles, what are the difference between weather and climate? And you're like, what? What is this about, right? So I'm gonna show you how I change this question. I want you to think about yesterday's lesson about weather and climate. So the weather and climate was a topic the students, the teacher taught the day before to them. And another thing that you didn't consider in most of the comments Graciela was sharing with me, you didn't put the wait time, how much time you will give to your students to share. But in this case, I have it. Take 10 or 15 seconds to think what does difference where, right? I'm giving them the time. Here we go. So I give them the time at that point, and then they discuss blah, 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 and everything, right? And then turn to your corner and share your answers so you can come up with the correct answer. So my students share this and that, and then I will pick one or two people so you can share with the complete class. What do you think about this? Tell me in the chat. Do you think it has the 4 steps that I am sharing with you today? Or do you think it's missing something? What do you think? What do you think about how I frame this? I will give you 5 seconds so you can write on the chat your answers for this. Graciela, we do the same, please?
Yes, so I'm going to tell you if we have answers. Right now, we don't have.
So what do you think? What do you think about this? Now that we have already shared the 4 steps.
Can I give you my opinion?
Yeah, sure, Graciela. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really like it because it gives the time for students to think before they share. It's super important for us teachers to develop their critical thinking skills, not only their English skills, but also the critical thinking ones. So it's important to give them time so they can share their answers, because sometimes it's difficult for students to stand up and speak. So for them to do it, it's really rewarding for us as a teachers.
Yeah, because also you can see not only understanding from them, but also like developing themselves, like producing, right? And I have one anecdote that I would like to share with you, because it's related what you were saying, Graciela, about giving them the time. Because I remember that I asked a question, and this is something when I started like long time ago, and I remember that I asked this question, and I put them in pairs, and they were discussing about this question, and then I just did this, right? I just asked directly to this student, and I was like, Ramoncito, right? And I asked him the question, right, that I was asking, and he answered the question, but it was not correct. And then I was like, I should have given them more time or something like that, because then the rest, like, kind of, it was a bad experience at some point, because this student felt bad because one of the others told him that it was not the correct answer. It was not me, but I think giving them the time and creating questions for our students, like as I was telling you, like the level of thinking from them, because sometimes we just say questions and sometimes our students feel bad because they don't answer correct or things like that. But I think what you were saying about time, I know it takes time when you ask questions to your students and answers, but it's very important for us as a teacher to give them this time for students to think about the questions we ask them in the class.
All right, I have some feedback from our viewers.
Yep.
So, Carla Fernandez says, think, pair, and share as a strategy. Mercy, yeah, I think that is missing giving students a background of the last class before. Carla Fernandez, waiting 5 to 10 seconds will increase the number of students who volunteer. Wendy Salazar, peer-to-peer interaction is easier for students. Grisel Barrientos, sometimes the students need to think what they are going to say, and someone, I think it's sometimes, just waiting to get courage to speak. Mauri, first I will make an activity to talk among them, then I will ask them to share the information.
I agree.
Those are the comments that I have.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it's your decision if you want your students to volunteer after having them sharing and thinking and doing this process. Maybe they can volunteer because they already have shared and everything, so they can tell you, right, the answer. But if not, you can actually ask to your student, right, like by naming them, or maybe at the end you can say at the end, any of you can tell me what is the difference between weather and climate change, right? But I think it's according to you as a teacher, and for instance, it depends on your class too, which kind of class you have, what kind of students you have, how they are doing, how much they participate and stuff like that, right? So I think you were correct with your answers too, and also what you mentioned about TPS, think, pair, and share. It's also based on this on the steps for having an effective questions in your classroom, because they can share, they can think, and with a pair or a partner, they can share their answers, and then they can reach whatever they are thinking. I would like to share with you some notes I found out that it says that this is taken from a research that the 80% of the questions are made by the teachers, so or comes from the teachers. I don't know you. What do you think? How much time do you ask your students in the classroom? Think about 20 seconds. Just think about 20 seconds, or maybe, no, I think it's too much time. 10 seconds. Just think about 10 seconds. You as a teacher, how much time do you ask your students in your classroom? Because I think sometimes we don't think about this, but most of the time, in my case, I am the one asking questions than my students. Of course, they speak and everything, but what do you think about this? What do you think in your classroom? Are you the one most of the time asking, or do you have your students asking questions between you and them? What do you think? Just tell me. Well, I think in my class, I ask the 30%. Just tell me. Write on the chat the percentage.
Okay, so I have Josie Alvarez. She says, maybe at the beginning and all the time to motivate them to participate. Ana Karina Guerra Sosa says 50%. If you ask me, I would say also 50%. So the class can be student center and not teacher center.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Talking about teacher and student center, yeah, I will agree.
Yeah, most of our viewers say 50%.
That's something interesting.
Maria Romelia says, I have used the find someone who for students interaction. And she says 50. Yes, most of our viewers say 50.
So 50%.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is taken from our research. I'm just telling you what I found, and in my case, I would say the questions most of the time it comes from the teacher. So I just throw the question, and my students are the ones speaking and interacting, as this teacher said about finding someone who. I think this is a nice activity for students, so they can interact. And also, as I am sharing with you, have to be effective with your questions in your classroom. Let me tell you that also the way we ask our students, not only like the structure of the question, but also how we as a teacher, the way we ask our students, that's the way they will take it, right? That's the way it is going to impact our students. And that is the impact of participation we will have in our classroom. So we are not only taking into consideration the structure of the question, or what are we asking, but how we're asking our students to think and to participate, right? To ask these questions. So we need to take care of the how also in our classroom. So I don't know if you have any anecdote about your question made in your classroom, but I share one with you. I hope you can share with us some of them. Well, for me, this is everything I have for you. Thank you for being in this workshop. So Graciela, I think this is a time for questions. If you have or any doubt or question to ask me. So Graciela, you can tell me.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a great conference. For the moment, I have one question. I
Yep.
think our viewers can continue writing while you can answer to this one.
Sure.
It says, what are open-ending questions?
What are
Ended
open-ending
questions. Uh-huh.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, with open-ended question is the question that you ask the students, but you have your amount of answers from this question. Like you ask them one question, but you already have like 3 or 4 answers they may have for this question. If they don't say any of those ones, then it's not correct. But I think those are the open-ended questions.
Thank you. Right now, we don't have more questions. Yes, the link for attendance will be shared in a couple of minutes. Don't worry. I have another one by Carla Fernandez. How can you plan your questions?
How can you plan your questions?
Yes.
I think it's dependent on your students and in your class too. Like as I was saying, also the level of thinking from your students, because you cannot just tell them really hard questions if you know they won't be able to answer for those questions. But it will be based on your class, what kind of class you have, your students. You know your students, so you may know how what is the level basically of thinking of them. Because as I was telling you, sometimes we just create awesome questions. We have very nice questions, but you go to the class and then you throw this question and then the students are like, what? And then not only that, but also you as a teacher, you don't have the right answer from this student or from the students. And then you're like, maybe you can say the student didn't understand or the students are not understanding, but it has to be also with the question you ask. And maybe you will feel bad about asking these kind of questions and then, oh my God, it's too hard for them and I didn't get the right answer and no one of them and stuff like that. But it's because the type of question you ask, right? It can be specific, general. So you decide what kind of question you are creating for your students. But I cannot tell you this is the right answer or this is the right answer for your question. But it depends on these aspects from your classroom.
Thank you. And we have another one.
Yep.
How can we make preschoolers interact and participate more in e-learning program if we have parents' intervention?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
I couldn't hear it very well.
Oh, okay. How can we make preschoolers interact and participate more in e-learning programs if we have parents' intervention?
Well, to be honest, I haven't given to preschooler classes. But, well, I have just interacted with some students from one school that I was not even the teacher. I was just volunteering, let's say like that. But I think set a routine with your students. You know that your students like to play, like preschooler students like to play and do stuff like that. So I remember that one time, you know, there are some ways to take your students' attention. So you can have a bowl with, I don't know, with papers, and then playing with them, and whoever throws a ball, then you ask a question, and you can have the attention. And with parents, if they are also into this process, like they can help the kids. But I think I really don't have the answer from this question, but this is something I saw that time, and I think it worked, because you just don't point people. And I don't have at that point I didn't have one parent there, but I had a teacher. Well, the teacher was there. But I think that's something that can work well, having games, but in between games, ask question or stuff like that with your student. I don't know if I help you or just confuse you more, but I haven't worked with preschoolers, to be honest.
Thank you, Sarah. I have another one.
Yep.
What is your recommendation to have more students participating and asking questions in the classroom?
What is my recommendation?
To have more students participating and asking questions in the classroom.
Participation more than question? That was a question, Graciela?
I will read it again. What is your recommendation to have more students participating and asking questions in the classroom?
Oh, got it. Well, participation and in the classroom and asking questions. Well, in my class, what I like to do for having this participation and having students asking questions, stuff like that, I use different kind of, let's say, of interactions. Sometimes I have, let's say, papers, color papers, or maybe I have different popsicles, or I have I don't know, any kind of material. I remember that I have one set of kind of dices, right? And I used to make them like pair up depending on the same color, or maybe into the paper they have with color, I put numbers. And so right now you will pair up with people who has the same number you have in your paper, or maybe you can have any other kind of material you could create with them, like maybe the same color of shoes or stuff like that. So you have different interactions, so then you have different participation from the students. Because participation is not only having a student telling to teacher, or teacher asking to the student, but also between the same student, right? Because they will have different opinions or different answer from the things they are sharing at that point. So then they will have different interactions and more participation, because they will have different pairs depending on the paper they have, on the number they have, on the letter they have. And so I think it's just being creative, right? Setting forms of having also kids going with different people around and having them talk.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that amazing conference that you just shared with us. Now, if you let me share my screen, can you
Just
please
yep.
close it? Thank you. So thank you so much. We are really grateful for all of the information that you provided us. So right now we are going to do the raffle for the TTS giveaway, the link that I sent at the beginning of the conference. Now we have all of the people. So I'm gonna share my screen so you can see that what we are doing is legal and there's no cheating, okay? So I have here all of my participants. We have a lot of them. Thank you so much for participating in this giveaway for our first digital TDS 2020. We hope that you actually learn a lot, and remember that English teachers or teachers in general never stop learning. So let's pick our random picker winner. Sure. I think we are having some problems with the web page. So give me a second. I will stop sharing so I can fix this. While you wait for me to fix this technical issue, I'm gonna send the link of the attendance in the chat for you to fill up your attendance. Thank you so much for joining us. And give me a moment so I can fix this technical issue about the raffle.